lobbying is the normal way of attracting the attention of and pushing a cause to Parliament. Why did the Indigenous community require a special process in order to do the same and hopefully achieve their objectives? Talei, I feel like you'd have a lot to say about that.
I really don't like that lobbying is the normal way to do things. I find it really inequitable. The conversation around the elite before, what is elite? Is it, access and privilege to proximity and access to power? Is it, money? Is it the people that you know? All these things play out in lobbying. And in my personal experience in trying to get a telecommunications tower for my remote community, because we have 3G still in the 5G era, and that impacting on health responsiveness and calling 000 and looking at your bank account, we had to lobby government to give us what I think is a standard piece of infrastructure, telecommunications. Like every Australian needs that. And I was so distraught at the fact that we needed to lobby and work with bureaucrats who didn't really understand the full effect of how bad telecommunications affected a remote community.
Not every community has a former advisor to the federal government living there, though, right?
Exactly. And, these inequities, I just found it shocking that those things played into trying to get something critical. And it speaks to why having a better understanding of politics and government and having a greater say and control on issues is necessary for places like remote Australia, where Indigenous people do want to stay and live. For me, that's home. That's where my country is. I want to be there and stay there, but unfortunately you have to be away from it. Remoteness cuts you off from access to power. So when I think about the voice, I think about, is it going to increase our access to power? That's what I find interesting about this conversation.
Kerry, Lorena, why can Indigenous Australians not really rely on lobbying as the main source of speaking to government?
There aren't too many Indigenous leaders who can lift a phone and get through to a Prime Minister the way some other very powerful Australians do, whether they be captains of industry, whether they be big political donors or whatever. But there's more to it than that. Knowing the history we now know of colonial and post-colonial Australia, and knowing that the original injustices were perpetrated in the most appalling ways and maintained much of the fundamental inequality to this day, I believe we have a moral and civic imperative to take this step to address the wrongs in a real and sustained way and close those gaps. What the Uluru Statement proposes is both symbolic and practical, and it is a huge pivotal moment for this country.
Lorena, did you want to add anything?
In 1967, Australians voted overwhelmingly yes to include Aboriginal people in the Constitution. That gave the federal government ever since power to make laws on our behalf. Not good laws, just laws. And this is the finishing touches to that referendum, because it stands to reason that if you are going to give the government special powers to make laws for Aboriginal and Islander people, you should ask those people about those laws. There is no mechanism in this country to do that at this point, and that is what the voice represents, and that is why there's such a push for it to be enshrined in the Constitution.